Is it more difficult for people who are introvert or extrovert to kind of express themselves?
You know, I think we have different ways of expressing. I think a lot of introverts are thinking everything, but they're just not always comfortable expressing the things. And maybe that comes out like I can express it one on one, but just not in a group. And so there's like an extrovert, but sometimes an extrovert's a little bit more performative. They're not really being authentic and vulnerable and willing to let their guard down and be like, hey, I'm really hurt. And I think, the idea of like physical pain is something we all can identify. And if we start talking about it, as like we all have hurt, right? And like these old wounds, maybe like I'm disappointed with something that happened at work today, but that reminds me of disappointment in my marriage or disappointment with my parents or disappointment with my money or disappointment with, and then like that anger is really building. And what we don't really hear with introverts or extroverts is just that authentic like feeling of hurt and pain. And that's where I think we can go as like a common thread with all people. It's like, what is that pain? What does that hurt speak to? And so I think introverts maybe are sitting with their pain and isolating, and extroverts might just be masking that pain and just trying to push through it.
That brought up a great point. I mean, we talked about how anger, from a physical reaction, or whether it's you can yell at somebody or whether you're throwing your hands up. I mean, you can see those, and it's maybe easier to identify. And people can say, "Hey, you need to chill," or you need to work on that. It's a lot easier, right? Because you could see it. But it's that silent anger, whether you're an introvert or extrovert, whether however you want to mask it, but that's really tough to identify and really tough to treat, I feel like, because not everyone sees it. And maybe you don't even see it in yourself.
Yeah, I think again that opportunity to really, uh, it's not bad or good. It's like, how do I understand my pain? How do I understand others' pains? And that's the thing with anger. It's a lot of times it's people just want to be seen and heard. I think like food, shelter, we have a basic need called I need to be seen and heard. And I think a lot of you can't help but hear me when I get loud. But then there's that quiet anger. And it's like Aaron's like, yeah, that's really smart. Like these kind of tone, the little sarcasm, little digs that people make. And like, Aaron's being a jerk, man. Like, what's his problem? And it's like people take that personal and then they get angry rather than, well, what does it say with Aaron, man? Like there's something like he needs. And that's really hard not to take others' anger personally. And so I think like that's where like a little bit of like what's coming, how do we step back and like kind of separate the act from the actor, the person from the situation? Because if it's a stranger, it's like at the end of the day, like I don't really care. Like you're just some random person of the 9 billion people on this earth. But if you're my buddy, you're my family, I care about you, and so I want to be curious about what's going on that he's just, oh, yeah, that's really good. Like all these nonverbal ways of communicating the frustration. And so like that's where like, hey man, like and again, a lot of men have trouble expressing care. And that level, like, we'll use our behavior rather than our words. And that's kind of maybe a more explicit way of putting it is like we need to use our words to communicate what our concerns are and that we care. Because that makes us feel comforted. And to some extent, that feeling threatened, we feel safe when I know somebody cares and I can communicate what's really causing me the pain.